Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Veg Networking Canada. We are going to begin with our land acknowledgement. It's important that we all honor and respect that many of us are located on traditional unceded territories of many Indigenous peoples of Canada. Another episode of Veg Networking Canada, where vegan plant-based companies connect and collaborate. Today, we have a very special guest and member, one of the early members of our group. She herself is a long-term vegan chef and organic food ambassador. Believe it or not, she is actually a college instructor on the topic. She is a podcast host herself, and she is a registered holistic nutritionist, an expert in all things plant-based nutrition. Veg Networking Canada is pleased to introduce the founder of Synergy Nutrition. Welcome, Shawna Barker.
Thanks so much for the intro and for having me.
Absolutely. And I said, believe it or not, you're a college instructor, because a lot of people who are going to be watching this are going, what? She looks so young. So I'm sure everybody is so curious to know your secret about vegan nutrition and how that all works. But before we get to there, actually, why don't we start there, I guess. What is your vegan origin story?
Well, I was always such an animal lover growing up. When I was like 8 or 9 years old, I started this little weekly fundraising group with my friends where we would like bring, I think it was a quarter or something, or maybe even like a nickel for the WWF, and we'd like do a little report on like an animal that we were interested in. And that kind of like carried over into like grade 7. Every time there was a book report, I would do one on like, or like a presentation we had to do. It would be on like animal testing or like the mistreatment of like farm animals or something. So right before my 11th birthday, I was at a friend's house for dinner and they ordered pizza. One of the pizzas was vegetarian, and I just kind of had like this light bulb moment. I was like, oh, like I don't have to eat animals. Like it just didn't really occur to me before that because it's so ingrained in us. It's just like the normal thing to do. So that kind of started me on this whole path. So I was vegetarian for about 10 years, but did kind of like stop drinking milk in that time. But it wasn't until my first year of nutrition school at the University of British Columbia where I decided to go like fully vegan. This was in 2002. So it was pretty like the early days of veganism. So it just had never really like occurred to me before, but we went to a small dairy farm for one of our classes, like a class project. And I just had this like pit in my stomach feeling of like just seeing the calves on their own. And this was like a small local dairy farm, you know, the kind that people brag about getting their products from. And it just gave me such a terrible feeling. I just decided then and there. And, you know, at that time, a lot of information was coming out about the environmental aspects as well, like how taxing animal agriculture is on the environment. So yeah, it was a very long journey for me. I had a long transition period, so I definitely didn't go vegan overnight. It was vegetarian first. But yeah, I mean, going vegetarian at such a young age, that's what like sparked my interest in pursuing a career in nutrition.
Wow, and that's really great for people to hear that it is more of a transition and it's not so black and white, because it gives them hope that, you know, they can achieve it too. And it sounds like from a very young age, when it comes to veganism, you had like a built-in innate understanding and compassion for animals. But it also sounds like from when you were very young, you had an innate entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, collecting quarters or nickels or whatever it was, right? Like that, what we're hearing probably is that's kind of where your entrepreneurial spirit started to get stoked. But with that being said, going through everything, what is your entrepreneurial story? How did it start and where are you at right now?
Yeah, I think like I graduated from UBC in 2010, and that was, you know, 7 years of schooling that I went through. And I didn't like, my goal wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. It was just kind of like, I need to follow my passions and do what I want to do. And so at that time, I did move back to Vancouver Island and leased a few acres of land. So I did, like, I had a little farm and a farm stand at like a weekly farmer's market. I had a food truck. I had like weekly meal box deliveries of like raw food meals. I had a line of like raw crackers and cookies in a few grocery stores and some desserts and some cafes. I was all over the place. So, I mean, occasionally I would have a nutrition client, which is like what I went to school for, but I was just like drawn to every part of like food and health and, you know, everything to do with the industry. But yeah, in like at the last question you're going to ask me about advice, I'll definitely circle back to all that.
Okay, awesome. Leaving us hanging. I love it. So when it comes to plant-based nutrition, we all know that like in and of itself is a trend. But further diving deeper into that, being a registered holistic nutritionist in that field, what are some trends that you have noticed and are noticing, considering your lengthy experience in this sector?
Well, I mean, just like a growing interest in people wanting to eat more plant-based or going full vegan. That's the majority of my client base. So that's been really exciting to see the growth there. And then kind of within plant-based nutrition, more research in the gut microbiome and everything to do with digestion and gut health. I've noticed a move away from like diet culture type advice where like you're trying to restrict calories and like restrict certain foods, food fear. So, you know, saying like one specific food is going to like cause health problems or that you need to cut it out, cutting out foods unnecessarily or following like very strict, like restrictive diets for no reason. So there's more talk about how that's not necessarily the way to go. And then kind of like addressing the inaccurate nutrition claims that are out there, especially on social media. Like, unfortunately, the the word nutritionist isn't regulated. And so someone like myself who, you know, has a science degree in nutrition, I'm a nutritionist, but so is someone who took like an online 1 month class on like sports nutrition. Like, they can call themselves nutritionists as well. So there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I just like how there is a trend of other like nutritionists and dietitians and naturopaths that are kind of like addressing that.
Incredible, absolutely. Yeah, that's why I kept hammering home registered holistic nutritionist, RHN.
Yeah.
Totally understand that. And it sounds like, which is amazing, that the trend is like moving away from scarcity mindset towards like abundance mindset, clear, accurate information. That's incredible. So I'm pretty sure there's been some changes, you know, maybe in your business and for sure geographically. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about where Synergy Nutrition and you are going in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed being a college instructor. I love teaching. And so I think now just I want to focus on moving that online. So having more like webinars, more educational like type content. So I am launching like a full webinar series in March. So I'm like really excited about that because I want people, especially like new vegans or long-term vegans that aren't feeling their best, I want them to have like accurate information so they don't think it's the vegan diet. And we can kind of like work through what may be going on.
All right. So online course coming in March for people who are plant curious, people who are long-term vegans. That's great. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So no right or wrong answers. Maybe you have, maybe you are, maybe it's in the pipe, something in the works, who knows? But does Synergy Nutrition support any charities?
So when I was in Vancouver, I often would like organize and host fundraisers. So for the Happy Herd or for Peace Canada, um, I've always donated prizes anytime there was like a vegan fundraiser happening. So I love being able to support any kind of like charity or fundraising event that's happening. And then here in Mexico, I'm going to be volunteering with a dog rescue place that's in the town that I'm in. So I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome, awesome. I'm sure they're looking forward to that as well. And I'm sure too, when you have your online course launched and then you're doing these, you know, education sessions with colleges and things like that, I'm sure it's a easy opportunity as well to like rope in a sponsor or something like that and just create more awareness. That's really, really cool.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
not
for
every
sure.
time that we have a conversation with a special guest or a member of Veg Networking Canada where they have their own podcast. So please don't be shy and please tell us more about that and mention that. But our next question is, what is a book, podcast, or app or multiple that you would recommend that people read or listen to?
Okay. So I'll start with Vegan Boss Radio. So that's my podcast that I started with my sister Megan, who is also vegan, and we often have a guest. It's not necessarily like an entrepreneurial type podcast. We have a variety of guests. So sometimes it's health related, sometimes it's an activist. So we have a lot of fun doing that. And actually that's in like my future plans as well, is to put those out more frequently. I think right now it's about once a month, but we really enjoy doing that. So just putting that out more. And then, I mean, for other books and podcasts and apps, I don't really use apps. I still use like a handwritten notebook for all of like my business planning stuff. For books, it's all kind of like nutrition related. So Fiber Fueled by a plant-based gastroenterologist. That one came out, I think, in 2020. It's packed full of amazing information. There's one called The Alzheimer's Solution by a husband and wife team who are like neuroscientists or neurologists. I can't remember, but they are amazing. And one that came out recently that I haven't had a chance to read yet, but I listen to his podcast sometime, is called The Proof is in the Plants. So by Simon Hill, Plant Proof. Yeah. So that one I know will be like full of great nutrition information. Yeah, for like business related ones, my mom did give me a book called How to Own the Room. I think it's geared towards like women entrepreneurs. And I had to leave it in Vancouver. I like couldn't fit it in my suitcase, but I know that they have a podcast as well. So I want to start listening to that as well. But usually when I'm listening to a podcast, it's like just for like entertainment. Like I rarely listen to like nutrition or vegan ones, which is funny. It's more just to like zone out and relax.
Ah, it's great. And that's the nice thing about these conversations we have with folks just like yourself. There's no right or wrong answers and everybody's got their own perspective on it. So it's just amazing. You mentioned, I'm going to kind of geek out, I guess, and add in a question that you weren't probably expecting. I'm sure you could probably talk at hours about it. So if we could just maybe keep it a little bit short. You mentioned the Fiber Fuel book by the gastroenterologist or whatever it was. And earlier you mentioned in the trend question about more focus on gut health. Can you, like, I don't know, take a couple of minutes and speak to the gut brain connection, because that is massive for entrepreneurship, making sure that the body's fueled properly to execute in business. So there's talk that, you know, the gut is actually the first brain and the brain responds to the gut. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much connection there. Like, for one, there's like the bidirectional highway called the vagus nerve. So that, I mean, our brain influences our gut influences our brain. So that's what it means by bidirectional. There's like neuropeptides and like different like endocrine type molecules that are made in the gut that affects the brain when when the bacteria and the microbiome eat fiber. So the book Fiber Fueled is all about how like our gut microbiome is dependent on like multiple types of fiber coming from plants in the diet. Um, so they make a byproduct called short chain fatty acids. So that's really beneficial to the whole body, but especially brain health. It's just so like you can't separate the two.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I guess it's not like one is first and second. They're like they are together, the brain, if you
Yeah.
would. And I know
Yeah.
we're not necessarily asking you to, dig deep and give people nutritional advice, but I guess maybe people listening are like, oh, that's fascinating. I'm interested in like a tip or a hack, how I can help that. Is it true or not true that maybe eating something like refrigerated cultured sauerkraut before or after a meal would help with the gut microbiome? Or
Yeah, I mean, eating fermented foods is great for the microbiome. So is diet variety. So I mentioned like fiber from plants. I mean, fiber is only in plants. So I just wanted to emphasize that like there's no fiber in animal products. And fiber is what's feeding the good bacteria in our gut. So there is like a tip to aim for 30 to 40 different plant foods a week. So if you can get that variety in your diet, and if you're buying like the same, 15 to 20 fruits and veggies every time you go shopping, and that's what you base your meals around, just try to be adventurous next time you're in like the produce department and grab something that you've never like used before. And you can just Google like recipes, like how to cook okra or like, what is daikon good in? So just like trying to incorporate new foods all the time.
and it's meant to be fun. Food is meant to be fun, right? And that's the nice thing about plants is like generally speaking, you're not going to find a lot of people who are allergic to plants. Like of course there are allergies. Food allergies are very, very important, but generally most people can afford to be adventurous and try new and different things. So thank you so much for touching light on that, because yeah, as entrepreneurs and business owners, making sure your gut is healthy, so your brain is healthy, so your clients are healthy, that's super, super important. All right, second to last question for you, Shawna, is what are some brands, companies, big or small, local or global, that inspire you in Synergy Nutrition?
One of the big ones I'm really inspired by is the Food Empowerment Project. So not only do they raise awareness about like the farm workers, their working conditions, but also things like ethical chocolate. So they have actually a vegan chocolate app. So you can check if that brand of chocolate you're buying is coming from a place that uses like child labor or like other um, instances where like the farmers are taken advantage of. So that's an amazing organization. They talk about food deserts and how not everyone will have the same accessibility to like a healthy, balanced plant-based diet. So they're really working on like trying to address those issues.
Wow, Food Empowerment Project, that's really cool. Go ahead.
Yeah, Food Empowerment Project. They're amazing. And then other companies, I mean, all of the local vegan food producers in Vancouver, it just blows my mind how many amazing like chefs and products there are out there. Like Chomp Vegan Eatery, I like Lita's Mexican food, Kula Kitchen, Blue Heron. Like these are the foods that I'm like missing not being in Vancouver anymore. And yeah, I think, well, that's a good start there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like asking a parent to pick their favorite child. Like it's hard to like not leave someone else. So totally
Where do I
understand.
start?
Yeah, yeah. But no, what you mentioned about Food Empowerment Project, very cool, because we're all very familiar as business owners and entrepreneurs in this sort of ethical arena, how rampant and prevalent greenwashing is. Companies that say that they're doing something, but they're not. One other less known term is blue washing, which, if anybody wants to watch Seaspiracy, they touch on it slightly, but that's exactly what you talked about, is companies who are basically saying that they're amazing to their people, but they're not. And that's what you kind of talked about with the Food Empowerment Project. Very
Yeah.
cool. All right, we're now at the moment. No pressure. You said you were going to, loop back to this and leave us hanging a little bit. So the last question, no time to be modest. It can be short, it can be long-winded answer, whatever suits you. What is some advice that you have for entrepreneurs and business owners who may be thinking of getting started, already started, in the middle, or near the end of their journey?
Well, what I was going to tie back to my entrepreneurial story is that how I didn't have like a clear focus or vision for so many years. I was just trying to like dip my toes into so many different things. I just ended up spreading myself way too thin. Like it, I mean, I learned from my mistakes and it was really fun. like, like it was a great journey. Like I wouldn't change anything now, but I'd say that would be like my biggest takeaway is like have a clear focus, have a niche. So like if you're trying to sell to everyone, you can't. Or what's the saying? Like when you try to sell to everyone, you end up selling to no one. And then if you can have a business coach, because I feel like that, like when you're a solopreneur, and you have that tendency like I did where you have lots of different interests and like projects that you want to do, if you can have a coach to like keep you on track on things and help you not be distracted, I think that's really helpful.
Boom, you heard it here, folks. Avoid shiny object syndrome.
Yeah.
Get yourself a coach who can point out blind spots. That's the crazy thing about blind spots. We don't even know that they're there. There's got to have people in our corner who can point those things out. Super, super valuable. And that's an amazing tip and piece of advice, because I'm sure everybody can agree with me here. I've noticed in the short time that we've been in 2022, I see a recurring theme online, and that's exactly what folks are saying. I've been spreading myself too thin. I've been saying yes too much. I've been trying to do everything and it's not getting me where I want to be. I'm spinning my wheels. So that's another amazing piece of advice to hear. The saying, we can hear the same thing 10 times, but we just rings true when one person says it. So
Yeah.
that's incredible. Before we let everybody know where they can find you on Instagram and on the web, please take the floor and let us know if there's anything that we missed, anything you want to share about your business, anything. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to be like launching the webinar stuff. So it is like there's 4 webinars. So each one is like a deep dive on a specific topic. So like one just general, one on protein, one on like supplements and micronutrients, and one on like common myths. And kind of like common questions and even like misinformation spread within the vegan community. So I still will meet vegans who like are so afraid of soy. And it's like, why? So yeah, I think that's something I'm really excited about. And then just we started Patreon for our Vegan Boss podcast because we don't really have ads. So we are doing like some extra bonus episodes that are all nutrition related, and then a monthly recipe package for our Patreons.
All right, sounds like you're taking good care of your community. So everybody, there's so much more that we could talk about today. We just don't have the time. Shawna's very productive, being busy, helping lots of clients. And so if that's something that you're interested in finding out more about, how you can get closely connected with her, you can find out more on the web. Just how it sounds, synergynutrition.ca. Again, that's www.synergynutrition.ca, and on Instagram at synergy_nutrition. Shawna, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for being part of the group and for sharing more about your story today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, we'll catch you next time. We'll catch you in those webinars in March.
Yes.